Welcome back to another episode of the Advanced Colorado Rundown. I'm Kristi Burton Brown. Joining me today is Dr. Debora Scheffel, Dean of the School of Education at Colorado Christian University, currently a board member on the State Board of Education representing Congressional District 4, and our fellow in education reform here at the Advanced Colorado Institute. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here on a beautiful summer day.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. All kids are out of school.
I know.
We're here talking about education anyway.
That's right. It's good. Change of pace for a lot of parents and kids, but still such an important issue.
Absolutely. And today, I kind of want to get your perspective with your long background in education and so much expertise on the issue, kind of an overview of education in Colorado. Yeah. We often hear from parents who are concerned about the fact that roughly only 40% of kids can read and do math at grade level in Colorado. Teacher pay is low. Only about 53% of the money actually goes into the classroom. So much more is eaten up by administrative costs. So I just love, first of all, for people to know you a little more. So tell us some of your background in education.
Great, happy to do that. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I really started in education wanting to be an English and history teacher, and I decided that I would rather work with kids who had special needs. So I got my master's degree at the University of Denver and got a job at Douglas County teaching special education. Loved working with those children. I kind of felt like they were so motivated, their parents were motivated, and I loved trying to help them, especially in the area of literacy and math. Those are the kids that really need help with skill development, and I loved working with small groups. You could really individualize, and it was a lot of fun. That said, I felt like I was still underprepared to help all the kids that were on my caseload. So I decided to go back and get my doctorate at Northwestern University in Chicago. Spent 5 years there, a clinical degree, and really tried to understand brain-behavior relationships, what the brain has to do with learning, how to individualize education, what subgroups of kids are in our system that really need specialized interventions. So that was a wonderful opportunity. I then went and did a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of California in San Diego and studied exogenous factors in education, meaning what's in the environment and surround that can set kids up for success. What kind of classrooms, what kind of cultural, meaningful experiences do kids need to be successful? So that was a great opportunity. And then after that, I had a bunch of jobs in various states, 6 states, just doing various types of work in teacher preparation, education, special education, sometimes clinical work, other times teacher prep, preparing teachers to go into the arena of education. So right now I'm the Dean of the School of Education at Colorado Christian, which is consistent with a lot of the other things I've done, which is how do you prepare a great teacher to, impact all the children that are in their classroom that can really resonate for generations to come.
I think you've hit on something so important. I think when we think of the huge education system, we sometimes can forget that the whole goal is to prepare children for success later in life.
Right.
And when the system breaks down and it's not doing that, we have real problems that do last for generations.
Well, that's very true.
What are some of the main problems you have seen in Colorado's education system?
Well, I think Colorado's like many states. I think there's some distinctives here that are wonderful about Colorado in the sense that I think we're welcoming to homeschooling parents. We're welcoming to choice. We have a lot of charter schools. We have increasing numbers of classical charter schools. So we have some good statutes and laws that allow some opportunities for parents to use open enrollment, for example, get on a list and send your child to a different district than actually is associated with their zip code. Those are wonderful things because we can't aim toward the middle and expect to meet the needs of individual children. They're all different, and we can't, one size certainly doesn't fit all. So those are some great things about Colorado. We all obviously love teachers. Teachers love and care about other people's kids, and so we have some wonderful teachers in Colorado and wonderful teacher prep programs. Some of the challenges are that we still have a system that still is not offering the number of choices and the variety of choices that really meet the needs of all students. You referenced some of the achievement issues. If we look at reading and math and history and science and writing, and we look at the achievement scores, we're not competing well globally. Nationally, we're not competing well. We have a small number of our students, 30-some%, nearing 40%, but mostly in the 30% range of kids who are proficient in reading, for example. And reading is a gateway skill. You can't understand content in science and social studies and history unless you can read well. And so we've spent a lot of money on that in Colorado. The READ Act is, seminal legislation, and it's been copied in other states, and it's been going on for decades. We have a literacy legacy in Colorado, a number of statutes preceding the READ Act that really tried to address K-3 reading. We know that if kids aren't on pace at the end of third grade with reading scores, that they have a very low likelihood of ever being on pace with reading. So if you don't get them early, it's really hard to play catch up later, just because of all the other priorities in education. So one of the issues is just how can we really help students master the gateway skill of reading, and then also master math and writing, so that they're set up for success in all the content areas. Because education is really about gaining the skills to seek truth, so that you can make great decisions in life and live a life that's well lived and flourish as a human being. Sometimes we forget that that's kind of what education is. It's not just about spending time there, it's not coming of age with your peers, all those things happen, but it's really about, can you gain the skills to become a flourishing adult that makes great decisions, that can think critically, and can have a life well lived.
Absolutely, and rather than just rote memorization or pushing information on kids, it is teaching them, you're right, to be that lifelong learner that can pursue success in so many areas, which is difficult without those basic skills. And Deb, I heard you say, basically, so we have good legislation in Colorado, in some areas at least. We have attempted to fund it through many different ways, and yet we're still having these difficult results for so many kids. So if more legislation and more money isn't necessarily the solution, and those are the ones that are constantly pushed, what would you suggest as a good policy solution, or even action parents can take? I mean, we'll take anything from like the ground level all the way up to what policymakers should be doing.
Right. Policies can be great conceptually and theoretically and philosophically, but it's what's going on in the ground in the classroom with the students and the teachers that really wins the day or doesn't. And so a lot of the initiatives that we've tried to push, we have performance frameworks where we try to shine a flashlight on great districts and we hold them accountable, and there's a 5-year clock, and if things aren't going well, we push more resources into the school. And then we have legislation, as you referenced, around the READ Act. The governor just supported legislation in mathematics that's analogous to the READ Act to really help kids gain those skills. So all that legislation is there, but it seems that year after year and decade after decade, we are really not seeing the kind of gains that money should translate into.
Right, still bad results.
And I think it's really because we don't have enough competition in the system, we have too much top-down regulation, we don't have enough bottom-up allowing the teachers to really do what they do best. We don't have enough parent involvement. The funding is off, in my opinion, in the sense that the funding could follow the students so that parents could choose where they want their kids to be. The sense that the children are the parents' most precious possession. And so they want to find the very best educational opportunity. So why not give them more freedom to find that? So unless we change some of these really seminal issues, it's going to be hard to see the results that we hope for and that we pay for year after year, decade after decade.
True. So much money constantly is going into education. And when you talk about school choice, it is a very popular thing among parents here in Colorado. I think there was a poll in 2023 showing 70% of voters across Colorado believed that the right to school choice should be put in our state constitution, that was something we should continue for generations to come. And so I think when people think of school choice, we often hear of charter schools, homeschools, private schools. People are aware of that. I think open enrollment is an interesting feature of Colorado's school choice system. What are some interesting pieces in Colorado's school choice system that not enough parents are aware of?
I really think classical schools are really gaining a lot of visibility for parents. And the reason they're gaining visibility, I was at the ribbon cutting of a school in Douglas County several years ago. They opened with like 500 students, Lehman Academy. Now they have over 1,100 students and lots of kids on the waiting list to get in there. And why is that? Because I think school used to be about 3 really important things. It used to be about language mastery, the logos. Language mastery is key because it's a symbol system with which human beings think. If you can't master language, you can't master many other things. The other thing is the telos, the idea of ultimate questions, which means education is about lofty things. It's not just about checking off a task list. It's not about checking off page numbers in a math book. It's about ultimate questions. And many of these classical schools identify that as 3 ultimate questions are identity. Why are we here as humankind? Significance. What is it all about? Destiny. Where are we going? And so the identity, the significance, the destiny questions are lofty questions that as humankind we think about. We want our kids to think about those questions. That makes school worth attending, worth reading wonderful literature about, so that you're looking at stories of wonderful people historically that address those very questions. And the last one is the erite, which is the idea of a worldview. Education is supposed to be about a meta-narrative to figure out, how do you make sense of life? I mean, adults are thinking about this all the time, so are kids. And so the thing that makes classical schools unique, I think, is they hearken back to, and not in a dusty sort of negative way, but in a super positive way, harkens back to why we have education in the first place. And we're having more of these classical schools emerge in Colorado and nationally. If you look at the numbers of schools that are opening in that arena, they're increasing. And it's just because they are addressing the lofty question issue, which resonates with who we are as people. It addresses the meta-narrative, how to make sense of life. And then it addresses the symbolic mastery issue. We must master the symbol systems of mathematics, literacy, and then music. And there's other wonderful areas, art, that are included in the curriculum of these schools.
And it seems like what you're suggesting is that parents can and should take it on themselves to really look at, what is the school teaching their kids? What does the school offer? Because we do have so many options here in Colorado, and the waiting lists are tough on charter schools, but at least theoretically and in the law, right now we do have so many options in Colorado where you don't necessarily have to just accept the school your child is assigned. You can cross district lines in Colorado. You can apply to a charter school. You can choose homeschool or private school and really give your child that substantive education that you're speaking about, that we wish all schools had, but they don't right now.
Right. That's right. They estimate that there's 16,000 hours between K-12 that kids are in school. And during those hours, kids make up their mind about life. They make up their mind about what matters, what they value, what their character's going to be like, how they're going to make decisions. And parents really care about what's happening in the mind of their child. And so parents kind of need to be very involved in, what is the content? What are your children reading? How are the questions being asked? What they're reading about? Because you can really bias what kids are learning to think about, even just by the questions you're asking them, in terms of assessment, for example. So I think parental involvement is key, because parents have the biggest vested interest in ensuring that their children grow up embracing the values that they've poured their hearts into. And it creates a wonderful opportunity for kids growing up in those schools.
Absolutely. And I think as we close this out, and you have so many interesting perspectives to share, what would you say, in addition to parents being involved, finding out what the school is specifically teaching, what if the best answer for a particular family is to send their children to the neighborhood school? That's what fits for them. Do they have options in getting a hold of book lists, or knowing who the assembly speakers are, or their conversations they should be having with teachers? If they do have to go to that school, even if it's not ideal, what would you suggest for those parents?
Yeah, really just making relationships in the school with the principal and the teacher, and finding out what the curriculum's like. So what is the curriculum? What books are my child reading? What are the kinds of questions you're asking? What types of assessments is he or she responsible for? Because that's what will drive the way they spend the minutes of instructional time in the classroom. And parents have a right to that information. Sometimes parents feel like they don't want to get involved, and they don't really want to embarrass their child, and they walk in the classroom, they feel too conspicuous, but really they're paying for this. And so parents need to be involved, and we need to have a relationship with those that are educating our children, because we are ultimately, as parents, responsible for that education. So just not being intimidated, go into the classroom, volunteer, look at the curriculum, ask for copies of the books. A lot of it's online, so ask for access to the links that get you online. Don't be intimidated by technology. Look exactly at what your kids are learning, and make sure it's resonating with what you and your family really want for your children.
I think that's excellent advice, and I think a lot of parents I know have found that when they step out and do that, there's other parents who wanted to do it too, and felt a little intimidated. But sometimes when you're that first person, you'll find you're not alone. And there's other parents that won't make you speak for all of them. They'll join you, and together you can be more powerful in advocating for your children.
Yeah, well said. I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Debora Scheffel. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Advanced Colorado Rundown.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. Join us next time on the Advanced Colorado Rundown.